Do-do-dee. It's Nandi!
Hello friends, sorry for the short hiatus. I took a couple of days off to recharge the batteries and I'm back today with a video on Ragnar Blackmane. You'll know by now that his legendary release event is coming up soon, on March 3rd. Now, I'm not going to rehash the unlock guide, tips and infographics, but if you're interested in unlocking him, I'll leave the link to that video in the description below. This video is intended to be a bit of a PR piece on Ragnar and hopefully encourage you to make the most of this coming event. Prepare your roster properly and ensure that you have some resources saved. Speaking from experience, in the last few months that we've been able to use Ragnar, he has slowly displaced basically all other damage dealers in guild raids, and his value in PvP has also skyrocketed. I'll take a deep dive into exactly how all of these things work together, with everything timestamped for your perusal. Before I get too deep into that, a quick, short plea. YouTube tells me that only about a third of my viewers are currently subscribed to the channel. If you can spare the effort, I'd really appreciate if you can click on that subscribe button. It helps feed into the YouTube algorithm and push my content to other people, which goes a long way in supporting my channel. I'll also get to give all of you more free codes as I hit channel milestones. Thanks in advance. So let's start with the absolute basics with Ragnar and work our way up from there. I've chosen the Screamer Killer as the enemy boss because its behaviour is fairly straightforward once you've mastered it. On screen, pictured on left, is Ragnar at Diamond 2 Blue Star rarity. On the right is the Screamer Killer armor at Legendary 5 with both of the primes killed. Ragnar's attack is in yellow, and we will add Calgar and Eldrion's passive damage boosts at level 50 in green. I want to introduce a concept here called DAMVAR, which is the abbreviation for the damage variable total. It's consistent with the information on the Tacticus wiki and will hopefully help to align viewers to the same terminology. Ragnar's DAMVAR is 3345 in this example. The damage that the character ends up dealing is the higher of two scenarios. Scenario 1 is DAMVAR minus target armor, or Scenario 2, which is DAMVAR times pierce ratio. You can see with the math illustrated on screen that DAMVAR minus target armor gives us the higher total number for this scenario. So in this scenario, Ragnar is dealing 911 damage per hit against the boss. Now let's add another couple of layers. Let's say that we're able to gain the high ground, which gives us a 50% damage modifier. It's also the first time that Ragnar is attacking the boss, so we get another 25% from his Rapid Assault character trait. Finally, we get a further 20% from Ragnar's Beast Slayer trait. Remember that modifiers are multiplicative, so our 911 gets multiplied by 1.5, and then 1.25, and then 1.2 for our next total. In this scenario, the 911 gets taken up to 2050 damage per hit. Hopefully you're still with me because it gets more complex and interesting. Ragnar's active is Warhowl, pictured on screen at level 50. Warhowl is an interesting mechanic that I'll take a bit of time to explain. The damage part of Warhowl gives the character another 33% damage. We can go back to our DAMVAR concept and then multiply it by 0.33, giving us a total of 1104. You can see in the ability text that the damage cap for this ability is 1996. So we get to add the entire Warhowl damage bonus here. You can hopefully imagine how if the DAMVAR is super high, then we might exceed the damage cap and have our damage bonus reduced or capped at 1996. So we now take this new total, 3345 plus 1104, and subtract the armor, ending up with 2015 damage. We apply our modifiers and again take Ragnar's total for this round to 4534 per hit. Pretty cool, but we're not done yet. Warhowl also makes critical hit damage more interesting. Critical hit damage is added to this concept called DAMVAR. Pre-critical hits, our DAMVAR was 3345. For illustration, let's add critical hit damage with a level 11 gun and crit booster. We now get a new DAMVAR at 4701. After we put that through the rest of the calculations, we end up with around 8500 damage per hit. Now, I know what the keen-eyed among you are probably thinking. Come on Nandi, this has been a great video so far, but you've taken a few liberties on this slide. How can you add all of that crit damage when Ragnar doesn't even have a 100% crit chance? Yep, fair point. Ragnar has a base crit chance of 40% that rises to 76% with Warhowl. In reality, you're going to be using him with Athana, taking your critical hit chance up to 96%, but I've omitted that layer of character damage to keep things marginally more simple. 8,500 is pretty crazy, especially when Ragnar can get up to 10 hits for that initial attack. Speaking of 10 hits, we haven't even looked at Ragnar's passive yet. Here we can add another 800 crit damage through a max level passive. That becomes 2,385 after we apply modifiers and takes our running total for the total damage per hit to around 11,000. Now we're obviously looking at max level stuff and assuming that the supporting cast are all there to help out too, but the numbers are absolutely insane. There is no other character in the game that comes close to putting out these kinds of numbers against guild bosses, and it just makes you wonder, or hope, will other legendary characters get the same treatment when they are reworked? Ragnar's awesomeness doesn't stop at guild raids. PvP is slated to become an even bigger part of the game with guild wars around the corner. Warhowl has some really interesting interactions with abilities. It boosts both the damage as well as the crit chance for the ability, and given that Ragnar is often used alongside Calgar, I thought that Calgar's active would be a good example to showcase. On its own, Calgar's active does around 4,000 damage per hit, and Calgar as a character has a 35% crit chance. After you use Warhowl, we add 33% to the damage of the ability, adding about 1,320 in this case. It also takes the crit chance from 35% to 71%. Now, the thing to note is that you can double Warhowl using aun'shi's active to recharge it, and the Warhowls do stack. Each hit from Calgar's active now does 6,640 damage, and the crit chance goes to over 100% per hit. On the bottom of the screen, you can see that the crit damage that is added also benefits from the damage bonus of Warhowl, giving us a total of about 8,000 damage to all enemies hit by this active ability. We obviously haven't checked against armor nor added in modifiers like high ground, but it just goes to show you how potent Ragnar is in PvP due to his effect on abilities as well. I think that it is this side of him and this versatility that really gives him the edge over other characters that only shine in guild raids. So where does that leave us? Ragnar outpaces basically every other damage dealer in the game in terms of guild raids. Moggen Ra, Thaddeus and Ravas are all playing second fiddle to this guy. The only boss where Ragnar doesn't excel is Mortarion, but he's part of my best in slot team compositions for all of the other bosses. His active also makes him a uniquely powerful build-around character for player versus player, and I think his stock will rise even further with Guild War around the corner. The next faction has been rumoured to be either World Eaters or Blood Angels, who are both melee-focused factions and I'm sure will enjoy some synergy with this Space Wolf warrior. That's all I've got for today, short and sweet. I'll sign off here with two things. If you are a newer player who hasn't yet used their referral code, I would love if you could consider entering mine as shown on screen, as it earns you 100 Blackstone and supports me in the work that I do. It is single use though, so choose who you support carefully. Finally, if you're interested in joining the Eye of Terror cluster, please drop by our Discord server. We currently have a few empty slots in our guilds, 3 with the Dark Angels, who have still managed to hang around the top 10 despite being a couple of players short. Pop by if you fancy the challenge at the top. Bye for now.
Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi.